This morning I'm going to actually invite us into a loving kindness meditation. So recognizing the button pushers and the ways that we also sometimes push our own buttons, to hold all of that, the complexity of who we are in our fullness. And so before we enter into that quiet, I ask you to pray with me. Sweet Spirit, God, Source, Mystery, help me lay aside what I think you need me to say today. Thank you for the partnership with the Dance with Spirit that this spiritual practice is for me, and help our partnership as a community lead us ever closer to the transformation that inspires our working and our being. And so as we come into the still waters of our time of meditation, as we go through the beauty and simplicity of the loving kindness meditation in this version, take a moment first to shift, to settle in your seat wherever you are, to shift your breath into its own natural rhythm, in and out, aware of that ebb and flow. The beauty of the loving kindness meditation is that we begin with ourselves. Oh, so hold yourself gently. Maybe physically putting your hands on your heart or feeling your hands on your lap. Holding your beauty, your insufficiency, your bumbling, your blessing. Hold it all. And wish yourself well. As you say these words silently in your own heart-mind, may I be filled with loving kindness and held in loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I look unflinchingly into my own heart and accept myself with compassion. May I be happy, safe, and free. May I be peaceful and at ease. And now bring to mind someone easy to love, someone connected heart to heart, a beloved friend, a partner, a beloved pet. And feel that heart connection as you bring them to your heart mind with this simple offering. May you be filled and held with loving kindness. May I see you with clear eyes of love and compassion, and may you feel held by my love and compassion. May you be happy, safe, and free. And may you be held in peace and with ease. Let your awareness now bring in those people that it's challenging to love. The people that feel like others. Even opening out to all directions to those you don't know, but whose life situations we think we know. Let your awareness open out to all beings, to the holy of water, of tree, of sunlight, of animal life, of birds and fish. Expanding out to the spiraling universe. And circling back here to our precious life on this one spinning blue planet we call Earth. As we hold all those living in poverty and fear, those living in wealth and comfort, holding gently the joys and sorrows of all beings. May all beings be filled and held with loving kindness. May all beings be happy, safe, and free. May all beings live in peace. And may we shift with eyes of compassion, eyes of oneness, into remembering we are the transforming path of love that we long for. And bringing your hands over your heart, if you wish, in a gesture of closing that circle. feeling the peace and power of loving kindness in the holy water of each of your cells. And then coming back fully into this space together. Maybe that's all we need this morning. It was a grappling week for me. And as I sometimes say up here on a Sunday, I guess I actually say it a lot on a Sunday, this part of my spiritual practice of having to take the shifting sands of my own active mind that doesn't want to slow down, that slides into judgment, that slides into worry, that slides into despair over all of the things around the world, those things close to home and those things that I see on the news, that I feel helpless and powerless sometimes to effect a change. Those are the big things. And then there are those small moments that I feel my own smallness, and not in a good way. Not in the way that I feel, oh, I am one cell in the throbbing universe. No, it's the smallness of my mind that gets trapped in the like, you should, you shouldn't. When my humanity shows like that, I don't love it. And so in the grappling, I found myself trying to find wisdom from many places. And so last night I did a little true confessions at my table at dinner and said I pretty much have started 4 talks for today. Somebody kindly said, well, good, you're good till the end of April now. But that is my inner work of showing up, and it's related to that intention and attention that struck me so powerfully when we watched that movie. I feel like I have to watch the movie again. Carol texted me, if I can say this to everybody. Carol texted me at one point, and I said, I think we've been looking for the God particles in the wrong place. There they are, in the water that is a part of us, that cleanses us, that is lacking in some places in the world because it is overused and taken for granted in other places. And yet I also kept thinking about who are we as a community? We say so many good things about who we are. It's all about love. We warmly welcome all. And yet I know that there have over time been people who don't come here anymore because maybe they don't feel welcome. That part of the divide that's happening in our own country right now is because some people feel welcome in some circles and not welcome in other circles. And those circles bump up against each other in ways that make some folks in our country not feel safe. So what do we do when our opinions or our belief systems create a space where other people in the world, in our own country, in our own city, in our own town, in our schools, feel like they have to become invisible for their own self-protection? Is that who we are? So I felt this paradox, this pull this week of all are welcome here, and how do we set boundaries? How do we, as my high school students taught me, how do we call people in and not call people out when they have hurt us? Or when they have unwittingly often stepped over a line they didn't know maybe was even there. How do we call people in? But how do we still set a boundary? I think often about when my kids were little. When a toddler is reaching for a hot stove, we don't say, "Oh, honey, you're probably not going to really want to do that." You know, it's just not, well, I don't know, maybe you want to try it over at this one when it's not. No, you grab them. You grab that toddler away from the fire and maybe even really firmly say, "No, no, hot. No, no." I have a few toddlers in my life as grandbabies. We're getting to that stage. That pulling back can be an act of love. It isn't always. Sometimes we pull back out of our own fear when maybe what love is calling us to do is to step in. The rub is like in our lighthearted "Hello, I am" introduction this morning. I am Brigid. I am arrogant, self-centered, and annoying. I'm not always. But I have got to keep scraping away the layers so that I can look first unflinchingly into my own heart. The path of love begins with holding myself in loving kindness and loving accountability. The path of love is not an easy path. Shift happens over and over again. We are in relationship with a friend, and a friend crosses a line, and we think, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can be your friend anymore." That happens in marriages, it happens in families, it has happened in political parties in our country. What are we called to? If we are called to say we're a community that welcomes all, that trusts that we're spirit-centered, what does that look like? For me this week, it looked like a lot of reading and thinking and pacing and writing and praying and praying and praying. Phil Goldberg, in the book that many of us are reading, connects in ways that we have talked about in this community often. Sacred activism. Last spring I did a couple of weeks of talking about Andrew Harvey and his path into sacred activism, combining the reaching out with the going in. And when those two things are combined, then we have sacred activism. Reaching out to others in ways that doesn't neglect the stuff we have to look at in our own, taking the splinter out of our own, the log out of our own eye before we point to the splinter in our neighbor's eye. Phil talks about it this way: the healthiest and most beneficial service flows naturally from spiritual abundance. What do I want shifts to how can I help? Doing for others becomes as natural as protecting a child, pulling that toddler away from the hot flame, or running out into the street after the ball. And as our arms of empathy open wider and wider, the Sanskrit maxim, and I will not say it in Sanskrit because I'll butcher it, the world is one family. The world is one family, oneness. Here we are. It becomes a lived reality. At the same time, it's always a good idea to monitor ourselves to make sure our intentions and behavior are consistent with our spiritual behaviors, our spiritual values. One of the gifts for me on my spiritual path in my own shifting is having this spiritual community. This spiritual community is not afraid to ask, what does it mean to say we welcome all? This spiritual community is not afraid to ask, how am I stepping in? We are mirrors to each other. We are life-giving water to each other. And this is one of the spiritual practices. This showing up in community to communally say, this is how it's going for me this week. This thing on the news made my hair on fire. Can I talk to you? Can I find a prayer chaplain to pray with me? When we come together in quiet, in singing, in fellowship, watching a movie about water, whatever we do when we come together, we have at least the opening, the possibility that we can go from the surface level to the deeper level. That we will encounter someone who trusts us enough to say, I see you. I see you when your light is shining and you are radiant. And I see you when your hair is on fire and you're not really sure which way to turn. I see you. Is this the path of love? Can we meet each other on the path of love? This week, Roger and I, in the midst of the doing, we're trying to support each other in being a little bit in the busyness of our day to day. So we paused the other day and listened to Patricia Pierce and her We Awakening meditation. She does this Monday through Friday. I'll post a link to that. If you aren't already following her, we'll post it. Half an hour from noon to 12:30. It's a really simple, she picks an angel card after we get centered, and that word for the day, there's an invitation to be with that word, the energy of that word. Not to, sometimes my mind is like, I want to, It's thinking about the word, but the invitation is to be with the word. This week, the day we landed with her, the word was faith. Not I have faith. I am faith. So she wrote this week, and I'll read a little bit of it, because it's about faith and fear, and that at the heart of my own swirling whirlwinds this week is where I was at. So she had a sublime experience. I won't say mine was sublime, but here are Patricia's words. It touched on it, though, even for me. As I opened myself to the essence of faith, I felt its serenity, its certainty, its assured calm. I felt it as an intrinsic quality of the eternal self that knows no death, no danger, no fear. I could feel how the divine self doesn't have faith, it is faith. What else could it possibly be, knowing as it does the love that is the source of its being. But then that afternoon, after the meditation was over, I found myself feeling an amorphous dread. It wasn't related to anything specific. Rather, I was experiencing the energetic essence of fear, the inverse of faith. One of the things I appreciated about Patricia, because I do see her light brightly. She is one of my spiritual guides these days. And she is completely grounded in her own humanity as well. From the sublime experience of feeling that profound yes to faith, I am faith, to that fear, the fear of all of the unknowns that filter in, that amorphous dread. That could have been that's what I was focused on a lot of this week. So her words clobbered me a little bit in a good way. The contrast between this feeling and that of the meditation couldn't have been more extreme. I had a sense that it was precisely the intensity of the light I had experienced in the meditation that had flushed out of the shadows of my psyche the energy of fear. Those people who pushed our buttons in big or small ways this week invited us to also flush out of our own psyches those parts of ourselves that we want to shine into the light for healing. Patricia writes, as all of this was taking place, I sensed that what I was experiencing was a microcosm of what is happening on the planet right now. The intensity of the love that is now flooding the earth, one of those water words, flooding the earth, is flushing out of the shadows of our psyches everything that is contrary to love, and which we had judged ourselves for and tried to drive away. Our task now is to stop doing battle with any of it and make space for it, holding it in all compassion. In a little, 2 weeks from now, when we celebrate the Easter morning service, we'll be landing with what does that cross consciousness of Good Friday, what did that mean? What does that new life consciousness mean? I find in myself that I am doing battle, mental battle often, enraged battle over what I see around me as the injustices and the pain around me in the world. What a challenge to hold it in love. On my own, in this form, in this human self of Brigid, I cannot. I can only hold it all in love. The kind of love that sometimes sets challenging boundaries, that says not past this line. But that line, if I am not holding even that in love, I'm battling. Can I shift that energy from the battle to the flood of love? The love that we talk about a lot here in these circles. In our human form, we stumble. In the reality of this oneness that reaches far beyond these walls, because it is that limitless oneness that is hard sometimes for us to wrap our imaginations around. Looking at those images of water flowing last night helped so much. Can we picture that holy water that is in us, that was present before the moment of the creation of light and darkness? According to Genesis, the water was there. Can we feel the life of that water? Can we nurture the life of that water in each other? Can we speak our truth with love? Can we hold ourselves accountable in love? Can we put hands and feet and heart and voice to love? Together, we can. Together is the only way that we can. And so I thank you for being, to me, the eyes and the hands and the heart and the voice of love. I am so blessed. We are so blessed. And now we are blessing everywhere the healthy cell of our body swirls out into the world. And so it is. Amen. Actually, before we come to the rest of our morning, one of the things that helped me to shift this week is, and I decided I wasn't going to read it because I've gone on very long today, but I'm going to read it anyways, and I'll post this as well. Another one of my spiritual guides these days is Rosemerry Wahtola Trommer, who I mention often. Her poem, Because, was one of the things that helped me get to the point where I thought, all right, here we are. And here are her words. So I can't save the world. Can't save even myself. Can't wrap my arms around every frightened child. Can't foster peace among nations. Can't bring love to all who feel unlovable. So I practice opening my heart right here, in this room, and being gentle with my insufficiency. I practice walking down the street heart first. And if it is insufficient to share love, I will practice loving anyway. I want to converse about truth, about trust. I want to invite compassion into every interaction. One willing heart can't stop a war. One willing heart can't feed all the hungry, and sometimes daunted by a task too big, I tell myself, what's the use of trying? But today, the invitation is clear to be ridiculously courageous in love. To open the heart like a lilac in May, knowing freeze is possible, and opening anyway. To take love seriously, to give love wildly, to race up to the world as if I were a puppy, adoring and unjaded, stumbling on my own exuberance, to feel the shock of indifference, of anger, of cruelty, of fear, and stay open. To love as if it matters, as if the world depended on it. Now, amen.